Welcome back to Interjections Christmas edition. Inter crash out of the Supercopa on penalties following a 1-1 draw to Bologna. I hope you can hear the pain and agony in my voice from this disappointment. I'm your host, Andrew. I've got your only other full-time Interjection members here with me, Mikko and Jay, as long as special guest Sterling. Mikko, what's happening?
Not much. Happy to be back after, I don't know, was it 2 weeks already? Missing a lot of stuff going on, but now I'm on a vacation for like over 2 weeks, so it's pretty good. Pretty good, and Inter losing, but whatever.
Yeah, so now you're on vacation just like you missed last episode because of, quote, work. I see. Suspicious things happening in Finland, that's for sure. Jay, are you going to the Milan Como game in Perth? What's happening?
I've never been to Perth, actually, and I don't know when the game is. Is this a Serie A game?
It's a Serie A game.
That is a disgrace. I mean, I could forgive like a, pre-season game or even like a Super Coppa game, maybe even like a fucking Coppa Italia final or something, but a Serie A game, like on the other side of the planet in fucking Perth? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me, so no, I will not be going to this abomination, and I can only hope that both teams suffer from extreme jet lag and fatigue as a result of this ill-fated decision to host this game in Australia.
We all know you're going to be there supporting Milan. Don't worry. Sterling, always a pleasure to have you on. What's happening?
Oh man, just watching my Bucks get cucked and somehow blow a division lead. I mean, watching Inter and being a Bucks fan has been really rough this year. So I'm just ready for the year to be over. Honestly, 2025 has not been a great year for my sports team. So hopefully 2026 brings a new chapter.
As a long-suffering Lions fan, I can only relate to your pain, Sterling. Well, we're finishing 2025 the same way we began it, which is with a loss in a quasi-big game against Bologna. No point in manufacturing outrage, though. It's hard for me to care about this fake Supercopa and this ridiculous format. I guess for me, it starts with we shouldn't have even been playing in this tournament. This thing should be the league winner versus the cup winner. The actual final now, Bologna-Napoli, will be the league winner versus the cup winner, all as well. And it was a group of, I'd say, disinterested Inter players putting up not much of a fight. And it was like every game we played this season that we had a bunch of chances. You have these half chances for Lautaro or Boni or Thuram in attack, and they just come back to bite us in the end because we don't capitalize on them. And I'll talk about B-Sec in a second, but this is just, we've seen this game played so many times. But we all know the Supercopa is pointless, so I'm not going to sit here and cry and bellyache and complain that we're eliminated from the tournament, because honestly, it probably is a blessing to get the extra time off. We did rotate decently in this game, so it's not like we rolled out the full standby starting 11 and lost. It is what it is. Three quick takeaways for me. One, Joseph Martinez was very good in this match. I've liked what I've seen from this guy, and I want to see him get more opportunities. And I'm not even talking about the penalty shootouts, but just in the game, he had excellent moments. He saved a great curler in added time in the second half. He claimed crosses, and it was an upgrade over anything Summer had given us this year. And then when you get to penalty shootout, forget about it. Summer does not save penalty. He has saved like one penalty in his time at Inter, including shootouts, whereas Martinez goes and he saved two, and a third went over the net on him. Like he was excellent, and I've seen enough to want him to be the guy moving forward, but unfortunately, I don't think Kivu is the guy who's going to make that decision. Second quick thing, just Basek. I don't know what to tell you guys on this one. I mean, he keeps having these incidents. I believe this is the fourth time he has gifted an opponent a handball penalty. And it's just tough with him because when you watch him play, he's been pretty solid this year. He looks good and is playing, whether it be at the center role and the right center back role, We were talking last episode how he's part of what is our best back line, and it's just hard to advocate for someone to be a part of the future of the club when they've gifted the opponents 4 goals. I mean, as an individual defender, if you make one mistake in Italy, your career is usually on life support, but to do it 4 times already, it's not looking good, man. And realistically, we don't have money to do anything about it, but he needs to figure this out, and this can't be a thing. It's untenable. And then real quick, I'll just add, you know the drill with this team and penalties. We're awful at them. Lautaro's converted penalty was awful. Even the make was bad. Barella, Bastoni, and Boni followed it up with 3 of the worst penalties imaginable. Like, those were 3 of the worst penalties I've ever seen an Inter player take. So my only criticism here, knowing we were going to lose the penalty shootouts, is Kivu choosing to sub off Zelensky 5 minutes before the match ended. He puts on Sucic. You know Zelensky is one of the best penalty takers on this team. Him and Hakan are the 2 best. You put on a Sucic who doesn't even take a penalty. It made absolutely no sense. Perhaps it would have made a difference in the end. I have a hard time being too upset about this, but I've seen a lot of issues with Kivu's substitution patterns the past 2-3 weeks that make me wonder if this is actually an improvement over Inzaghi or just a continuation of Inzaghi. So, Mikko, I'll start with you. Are you chalking this up as another big game failure, or are you as indifferent and lacking care as I am for the Supercopa?
Yeah, more the lack of care, but I really can't put this in the big game category, even if this is kind of semi-final. Like, if we won this, no one would have categorized this as big game 1. Like, no one. So we can't put it the other way either. Anyway, I think you kind of summarized the whole thing. Team wasn't all that interested. They scored right in the, like, what was it, 3rd minute or something, and then it was just like they just wanted to play it through, and well, there was the penalty conceded, pretty stupid one. I don't know, should that be a penalty or not. I kind of hate those kind of handball penalties, but whatever, it was called. They equalized, and then in the second half, I think we played pretty well in the second half. We wanted to score, but we just couldn't kind of push it through. We had some chances, but they weren't like super good chances, which were kind of messed up. Maybe the De Vrij header was really a messed up one in the end. I think that was something you should kind of you should score that one. But other than that, like from the open plate, there wasn't anything super good going on. Even if we pushed them hard. Even Italiano said after the match that we as in Bologna couldn't do much in the second half, as Inter were just pressing us so much, and that was kind of the case. But at the same time, like you, Andrew, said, it was kind of the case that we kind of pile on the pressure. We have the possession, but we just can't convert that pressure to real chances, like good chances. Some crosses, I believe that De Vrij was from a corner as well, if I remember correctly. So set pieces, those are kind of our bread and butter, so to speak, in these kind of matches. Now we couldn't do it. Then straight to the penalties, and and that was a bit of a joke. Like, I'm like, whatever about this result. Like we went out. I actually feel pretty okay about it, since we get the rest, like extra rest. Players can go to spend Christmas with their families, and maybe 2-3 days rest instead of preparing for the match and then coming back from Saudi Arabia and so on. But still, kind of the attitude in the penalties, I don't like that. I don't like how Bastoni, Barella, how they kind of acted there when they took their penalties. Like be serious, like be professionals. Even if it's like I had this feeling that, okay, they are out there in Saudi Arabia, but if they were in Meazza, I assumed they would have been a bit more kind of serious with their, at least with the penalties. Like that was I didn't like that. The bunny one was I don't know. He kind of tried to be cool, but then he forgot what to do in those kind of penalties. Like he forgot to actually look where the goal is going. But yeah, I'm not too worried about this result. As said, I'm actually happy the players get a bit more rest. They can prepare for the Atalanta match and so on. So no big thing, but maybe the penalties and the attitude of the players weren't like top notch there. As for Kivu, I kind of disagree there with the subs. I maybe the Zielinski one was a bit odd one, but then I was thinking like, does he actually want to lose this or like decrease our chances there? Since it was like right in the end, Sucic wouldn't make a difference there anyway. So what was the point? I was thinking he didn't put PO in and so on. I totally understand why he doesn't put in PO or Çalhanoğlu, as he explained after the match. That's fine. He clearly kind of see the big picture that okay, this is not a match to this is not worth to risk anything, basically anything. And I completely agree with him that like whatever, this is like whatever match, and yeah. So I was okay. With the outcome, even if the penalties was kind of a disgrace.
Sterling, can I get your thoughts on the Joseph Martinez start / his future versus Summer?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obvious at this point that we have a better backup than we have starter, and it's really up to Kibu to decide whether or not he has the balls to bench Summer. And I still have my doubts as to whether or not he does. And it could be to the detriment of his intercareer as a head coach moving forward. But you know, it's not Sommer's fault at the end of the day. You know, we bought a 35-year-old goalkeeper who relies on explosiveness, and he's now deeper into his 30s. And for the last year or so, he's been a liability. He doesn't claim high crosses. He is not the same explosiveness that he had. He doesn't have the reflexes that he had in his prime to make up for the fact that he's also not the tallest of goalkeepers. He is still good with his feet. I'll give him that. I think he still has a commanding presence in terms of the locker room and in terms of maybe organizing the defense. It's obviously he's very well respected in the team, but he's not the best goalkeeper in terms of shot stopping that we have on our roster. That is Martinez, and the thing with Martinez is that every time he's played pretty well. I can't think of him ever making a glaring error that led to a goal. There's certainly been no goals that he's conceded where I said, "Oh man, that's something he should have gotten to." He's been pretty sharp every time he's played. The only thing that maybe you can say he could improve in is his distribution, but I think that comes with playing time. When you bring a guy who goes months between starts and you put him into the team, yeah, I mean sometimes he's gonna that's a an issue that can be sorted out with some playing time because I feel like it's not a technical issue. He has the technique to be able to play the position. It's just more so can he bed into the team and get used to playing with his teammates and just overall make better decisions on the ball. But you know, we're at a kind of a point in the season now where Kiwi's been protecting these veterans. It's not just Sommer. It's also Mkhitaryan. It's also a Sherby. And he hasn't shown that he is willing to make those tough decisions and actually drop any of these veteran players yet. And that even can include some of the guys who are in their prime, even the Bastoni, Barella, Lautaro, guys who we know ultimately will be the protagonists in this team. And we're really only going to go as far as they will take us. But even guys like Taram, these guys can be benched. It is okay to bench a really good player to light some fire under them. And right now, Kivu is not really shown that he's willing to ruffle anyone's feathers. He talks about fairness a lot. He talks about everybody getting their chance. Like this isn't youth football. You're not a PE coach. You're not a caretaker. You're not an interim manager. You are the manager. So I would like to see him start to make some of those tougher calls because I think it'll be better for the team overall, especially with the style of football he wants to play. If we want to play this more running gun style with a higher line, we need younger bodies throughout the team that are able to run and press, and also guys who are just willing to take a chance. I look at guys like Diouf who come in off the bench and, despite maybe some shortcomings in terms of, his defensive ability as a wing back, the guy wants to prove himself. He's hungry. He would have happily played a Supercopa final. Whereas I think the majority of this team just could not care less. I mean, it was obvious to me that we had no willingness to win that penalty shootout. I mean, we didn't want to be there. To me, it was very obvious. And yeah, like Mikko said, even some of the decisions towards the end of the match with the substitutions leads me to believe that this team wanted to go home. They wanted to be home for Christmas. They wanted to have those extra days off. There is a lot coming up for him for this team in terms of fixtures over the next month or so. We are an aging team, and I think that they quite frankly, made a business decision. And, it's disappointing for us as fans, obviously, because we want to see our team win every single time. But I think that that's ultimately what it came down to. Um, but yeah, now it's time. I feel like for us to really kind of get in gear here and knuckle down because this is going to be this next month that comes up here is really going to be a deciding factor for the way this season's going to go, both with the Serie A matches that we have coming up and also the Champions League matches. If we have a really good month, I think it sets us up for a great second half of the season. And I think we all feel a lot better about Kivu as a coach and what this tenure is going to look like. But if we have a really bad month, then I think that it's going to do the exact opposite. And I think a lot of us are going to really be feeling quite negative about this team because if we're being honest, that is the overall sentiment amongst fans right now. It's a lot of negativity from the fans online, even in the media a little bit. It seems like there's a lot of negativity building around this team, despite the fact that we're still in the top eight of Champions League, despite the fact that we're, still leading the league. We got to kind of quell some of that and take a step forward. So hopefully more answers will come here in the near future.
Yeah, it's a big month of January. You finish the year with a couple of tough games. You have Atalanta, and then I think it's Bologna first thing in the new year. And if you survive January and you're top of the table and you're in the top eight of the Champions League, then confidence is going to be roaring. People are going to feel great about themselves. But if this team does what it did last year, which is when the calendar flipped years completely collapse and you start dropping Champions League fixtures and suddenly your first place in the table goes to, are we vying for a Champions League spot? I mean, things will change incredibly fast. So we're about to see what this team is actually made of. And frankly, being top of the table right now is meaningless to me. I give us very little credit for it because I say it's more of a function of our opponents than it is of anything we've done particularly well. But we have a chance here to actually do something. And eventually you need to take one of these chances or you're going to fall to where you belong in the table. And it's that simple. Jay, of the four poorly taken penalties, Lautaro, Boni, Barella, Bastoni, which was your favorite?
I think Bastoni's was the most fitting for the occasion, given that Bastoni has come under some criticism recently following his, what was it, the shirt tug against Liverpool that gave away another penalty. We mentioned at the time that or at least I mentioned at the time, that the way he defended on that penalty incident involving Florian Wirtz and ultimately Liverpool's winning penalty was lazy and complacent and entitled and just all the worst things about the player. And I think you saw both the best and the worst of Bastoni. Again, in Riyadh, the best of Bastoni you saw in the very beginning of the game when he won that ball, made a fantastic run, and then curled in a beautiful cross for Thuram to score the winner. That was Bastoni at his best. His technical best, his beautiful football best. And then you saw the exact opposite as well. Just some tall, skin and bones, lanky kid who still doesn't have a winner's or leader's mentality yet. Just kicking this half-assed, weak, and very timid penalty to the center right middle of goal at a comfortable height for the goalkeeper. You know, we've said this a million times, but you either try to game the keeper and deceive them into going left or right and putting the ball on the other side of the net, or you kind of make that irrelevant by putting the ball in the corner. And even if the goalkeeper dives to the right side, they still can't reach your shot because it's placed so close to the post or in the corner. You know, Lukaku had some insane run of penalties scored for us. He had like 18 out of 18 or something at some stage, and every time his penalties were never like, for the most part, blasted into the corner or anything. He used to just roll them into the net, but he was an expert at sending the keeper the wrong way. Whereas a lot of these guys, Lautaro included, there's none of that. They just kind of telegraph the way they're shooting and they go and do it very predictably. And the result is exactly what you see. And I feel like the penalty shootout just perfectly encapsulated the absolute lack of technical sharpness in this squad. I've long complained about this team being comprised of just very dull, blunt instruments. There's not a scalpel in the team aside from maybe like Zielinski, right? Everyone else just feels like a bloody hammer. And in addition to that lack of sharpness and incisive kind of technicality in the squad, it also just summarized the lack of mentality. Because, you know, I'm going to push back a little bit on what Sterling said. I don't think that they wanted to go home. I don't think they kind of deliberately copped out or deliberately just said, yeah, no, fuck it, let's just call it quits here and just, you know, oh, there's the train coming, let's just get on this one and get out of here. I don't think it was opportunistic like that. I just think that they crumbled. I really just think that this was yet another occasion of, as you guys correctly described, a semi-big game, I guess, in the fact that it was a semi-final of a Supercoppa, and they just didn't have the nerve to put those penalties away, you know? Like, you've seen these guys like Bonucci and Chiellini slot away penalties as centre-backs in like a Euro final, right? And these guys are like trembling in some fucking Supercoppa semi played in Saudi Arabia in front of an audience of casuals in a competition where no one really gives a fuck, and you've still got this fear. Like, DeMarco couldn't even bear to watch. He was facing the other direction. Like, grow some balls, guys. Seriously, this team has such a lack of courage. It's so disheartening to see that time and time and time again these guys come up short through no reason, through no means other than their simple inability to get the job done and to show a bit of courage and to try. You know, I feel like they're afraid of trying and failing, so they just succumb to the easiest exit or the easy way out, which is to simply surrender and resign themselves to losing. And we've seen that at every big game this time. Even if we have at times outplayed or matched our opponents, I think it was Mikko who originally said it a few weeks ago, and it's the perfect encapsulation of our season. These guys just find a way to lose. You know, it's not just like, oh, we got our asses beat, this team simply outplayed us. They always just find some fucking way to lose, whether it's through shit penalties or like some idiotic handball or some dumbass foul in the 88th minute. There's just something. There's always something there that gives these guys a way out, that gives these guys a cop out, an excuse, a way to lose. And I think, regrettably, that is the true hallmark of just of losers.
My favorite moments, speaking of losers, was Barella after skying his penalty into Rosie, looking down at the spot in dismay as if it was somehow bobbled on him, as if it was somehow the pitch's fault that he just absolutely launched this ball. But I did actually, it reminded me of the shootout against Atletico, not Lautaro's bobble against Atletico, but actually Acerbi's penalty, which was so perfectly placed in the roof of the top corner of the nets. Kind of a similar thing to DeVry, who finished the shootout by blasting it and it goes off the bar and in. It's like, Bonnie, man, well, can't you just go for power? If you do not have the technical ability to do what Hakan does and slot it into the lower corner, just blast the thing and hope for the best. Sometimes, if you hit it hard enough, the keeper, it will hit his hand and still go into the net because there's just so much pace behind the ball that they can't do anything. They can get in the way of it and it's still not enough. So to go for these meek run-ups and you try and Jorginho it when you trick the keeper and just slot it away is just inexcusable in that situation.
You just can't tell me that those are the penalties that these guys would take if they were in a Champions League semifinal. Looking at the way that they approach the penalties. I mean, the run-ups were sloppy. Obviously the finishing was sloppy. To me, it just didn't seem like they wanted to even be there. That's the only thing I would say. I don't disagree with anything that Jay is saying either in terms of these guys finding a way to lose big matches. Is what they've done all year. But to me, and I've never questioned these guys in terms of their professionalism, but to me, it just seemed like they didn't want to take that next step. If anything, yeah, maybe they were dodging the Napoli fixture. Maybe that's the real truth of it, is that they didn't want to play Napoli again and then have to deal with them and also in the league. I don't know, but there's no way that those were on the level in terms of professional players giving their absolute best to win a match, in my opinion.
I think two things can be true, which is one, we were largely disinterested and didn't look like we wanted to be there throughout the game. But we also have a long track record of knowing this team's not any good at penalties. And we know there is just complete shortage of people capable of taking these things in the squad. Lautaro's career record is around 60%. That the two best guys in the team are Çalhanoğlu and Zielinski, and they were both unavailable. So after watching the Atletico shootout where we were like using little used Davy Clausen as one of our 5 takers, I think that kind of speaks to what's available in this team and why we struggle in these spots. So I'm not willing to go as far as say they were intentionally or they half-heartedly trying to get sent home, but none of the penalties surprised me. Like, this is what this team is when these shootouts happen.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it's such an indictment that, you mentioned it, like De Vrij and Acerbi, or De Vrij in this particular game against Bologna and Acerbi against Atletico Madrid. Like, these, are you telling me someone like Barella or Lautaro is somehow less technically capable of scoring a penalty or accurately shooting a football than someone like Acerbi or De Vrij? The simple answer is that Acerbi and De Vrij have more bravery than these other guys. And that's the biggest issue here, that players like Barella, Lautaro, DiMarco, whatever, these guys are supposed to be our leaders, and they just don't have it within them to lead. Barella has always been a mentally weak player. Lautaro, for sure. He occasionally comes up big for his national team, but he's such an up and down guy. He's got, his highs are extremely high, winning the World Cup, winning Copa America, whatever. His lows are equally low as well, And so I don't think there's any cure to it, unfortunately. I think occasionally, as I've always said, some uber strong mentality coach like Conte or Mourinho comes around once a generation and just drags these bitches by the scruff of their neck across the finish line and just keeps everyone so high performing at such a, unavoidably rigid and ruthlessly well-maintained level that it's impossible to just to drop for a moment. But the second we lose that kind of authoritarian, it seems to always go back to old patterns, old ways. They just seem to find ways to fall back into their comfort zone. And I think that's perfectly evidenced in the fact that despite having Conte and building what could have been a legacy and having a squad that should have been basically self-sustained to dominate, we won one Scudetto, in the 5 years after Conte left, right? Even fucking Sarri won a Scudetto at Juventus, because the players were drilled to do so. But I feel like ours didn't have the same level of mentality that the Allegri and Conte Juventus players had drilled into them. I just don't think our players were built of the same steel.
Yeah, and that's the criticism people have of they think this generation of Inter players, we should be in the middle of our own run, where you're looking back on it and you have multiple Scudetti, you have a European title to your name, and you can reflect back of, oh, that was the Inter dominant era. Whereas in reality, it hasn't been. This has been the last 5 or 6 years of Serie A being wide open and no team truly being dominant. And even if we think we look the best on the pitch, even if we think we have the best squad or the highest valued squad, we really don't have a leg up on domestic titles. And that's kind of the summary of the Inzaghi years. And it's why this team has kind of been stuck on the cusp, on the just one step away far too many times. All right, we're going to put a bow on the Super Copa conversations. I want to bring back an old favorite. We're going to play a game of buy or sell. So I give a statement, and then these guys say if they buy it, as in they agree with it, or sell it, as in they disagree with. So a lot of these are going to be mercato themed, but we'll do 5 total. So I'm going to start off with number 1. Davide Frattesi leaves Inter in the January window. There's a lot of smoke about this one. Napoli interested, Juve interested, Newcastle interested. If you read the Italian papers, we know he's not playing much. We know that when he does play, it's usually for short cameos or in meaningless matches. The question, I guess, would be, what is this guy actually worth? Can you get a good price for him? Can you get a price for him that the club is willing to sell for? So, Mikko, buy or sell for Frattesi leaves Inter in January?
Buy. I think he will push it so hard that we will find a way. I'm going to expect it to be a loan, maybe with an option, because we probably won't find a number which is kind of acceptable for the buyer. So it's going to be a loan to somewhere. I don't know where. Hopefully outside of Italy, but I think that's unlikely, because Frattesi will have a lot higher chances to play constantly in Serie A. But yeah, I'm going to buy this one. He will force the move, and I guess he has the kind of the arguments for that as well. Like you said, he hasn't played that much, and like we have been talking here, and in media there's been talk like over an year or year and a half that he just can't find the minutes at Inter. He doesn't fit in, so I guess it's best for everyone that he leaves. So bye.
Sterling?
I would also go with buy. I think that at this point there is a willingness from both parties to part ways. I think Inter has set the price around 30 million euros. Frattesi is, this is his 3rd transfer window in a row where I think he's open to leaving. I really think that we missed the boat by not parting with him in the summer, and probably that was probably the peak of his value. And even then, we weren't getting our door beat down with a ton of offers. We had some late loan offers in the transfer window, but I do think that this is probably the closest that he's been to leaving. But again, like Mikko said, I don't see that there's going to be somebody that's going to come in and make a huge cash offer for him. We probably will, at the end of the window, look to maybe some type of a loan option just to make the player happy. Hopefully we can get an obligation attached to that, but I'm not going to hold my breath. But yeah, at this point, he's just not a functional midfielder for the way that we play, what we really want out of our midfielders. So getting him out, if it allows us to bring somebody in who either can play deeper in that regista position, or if we can bring in a right wing back because of the Dumfries situation, or even if we could add a center back. I mean, there's multiple different ways that we could improve this squad by a man out and a man in. That man being Frattesi. So hopefully that's the path that we can go. I mean, when I look at Frattesi as a player, he just strikes me as a guy who could go to a mid-table EPL team and be an absolute cult hero. Like I think that similar to the way that you've seen guys like Malik Chow go over to the Premier League, and they were getting a lot of flack in Serie A, but they go to a different style of football that suits them better, and all of a sudden they're a lot more highly rated. Um, he seems like a player he's got the engine for it. He scores goals. He doesn't have the absolute best tactical discipline or technical ability, but he's a run and gun fight type of player. I feel like he would be a great fit in the EPL, in the right team. Obviously, he's not going to be in the top teams there either. His technical ability is not good enough, but there is certainly a team out there that could benefit from his services. So hopefully, we're able to find that. And honestly, maybe even a loan to a team like that isn't the end of the world if it builds his market value, and maybe he even has a good World Cup, and then we can part with him then.
I've already forgotten which one was agree and which one was disagree.
Agree is buy.
Okay, in that case, I'm selling. I just don't think we'll find a suitable option. Wait, was the question? Did the question include loan moves?
Just that he'll leave Inter.
All right, in that case, I'm a bit more open to buy, but I'm still going to sell. Or rather, I think the only potential situation around a departure would be a loan scenario. I just don't see anyone paying anything upwards of like 20 million for this guy at this stage. I don't know. Maybe I'm just. I've been told that I'm negative, if you would believe, but
Really?
yeah, shocking. I couldn't believe it either. But listen, maybe I'm just a bit negative on this, but I feel like Inter players, their transfer value just seems to plummet if they're not playing well compared to other teams. Is it just me? Am I just? It's just like some kind of,
It does seem like we can never sell bench players. Where you see Juventus sometimes sell a bench player for a decent figure.
Yeah. Or like fucking Milan selling like Malik Chow for like 40 million. What the fuck is that? You know what I mean? Like, it just feels like there's definitely some degree of my team bias involved, or in my case, my team anti-bias. But yeah, it just feels like we struggle to sell players who are, or generate a market for players who are not really wanted at the club, right? And so if that hunch that I have is true, I just have a hard time seeing anyone bid for Frattesi over 15, 20 million. So at the same time, I don't see Inter accepting that. So the only likely chance that he'll leave is a loan. Otherwise, he'll stay. So it's somewhere between like maybe, but I'm probably not.
I think first off, you got to mention the World Cup here. I don't know if we've mentioned that yet, but he does want to play in the World Cup, assuming Italy qualifies.
Italy's not qualifying.
I tend to agree with you, but hypothetically, he will not know that yet by the end of January. And if he thinks Italy is going to qualify, he's going to want minutes away to prove himself for the World Cup squad. And I'm disappointed. I was hoping Frattesi would get a fresh start under Kivu. Unfortunately, it's been a continuation of the Inzaghi years. We still play the same style of football as we did under Inzaghi. We didn't make this 3-4-3 change. He hasn't had a chance to prove himself in a different way. So I'm disappointed that he wasn't able to carve out a meaningful role here. I'll buy. I do think he's going to leave. There are enough reported teams interested that I think you can get a quasi bidding war, and even if it's not like a large amount of money, you might be able to get a loan with a reasonably priced option on it of like 25 million from one of these interested sides. The real question is, would you be willing to sell to a rival? Would you be willing to sell to Juve? Would you be willing to sell to Napoli when you're in the middle of a Scudetto chase? I think the answer has to be yes, given how little you use him and how you need to bring someone else in here. But obviously, if Newcastle is still interested, that's best case scenario. So that'll bring us to number 2. which is buy or sell. Inter signs a new player in the January window. Mikko.
That's a well. If I said buy for the Frattesi leaving, I guess I'm going to buy this one as well. I'm the Yeah, in a sense, I feel that we are going to be very conservative in the market. But if someone leaves, someone needs to come in. And also, we have Palacios, who hasn't done anything. Well, he's been injured most of the time, but
Who's that?
but yeah, exactly. He's going on loan somewhere for sure. So we need to bring someone in, be it a defender, be it a wing back. I don't know. Do we need actually midfielders? Maybe if Frattesi leaves, I guess we will look into midfielders as well. I'm going to buy this one, even if I've been kind of pessimistic with the market, in a sense that we won't enter the market, even if we have clear needs there. They are going to parrot basically what Oak Tree tells them, kind of, we don't have any money and blah blah blah, like internally, of course. But I think someone will come in. Maybe it's some like a cheap loan or something, but something will happen. I'm gonna buy this one as well.
Ausilio has been adamant that nothing's going to happen. Go ahead, Sterling.
Yeah, I'll probably. I mean, this is actually a tough one because I really could see this going either way. I'll slightly go towards buy on this. If you look at our historical January transfer market spend, it's never been anything tremendous, but we do seem to make moves in the January window. I think that we probably will. I don't know, maybe a right wing back on some type of a loan option. I could see us doing, although the names that have been rumored to us, none of them are really that exciting. And the ones that are exciting cost a lot of money, and the teams don't really want to part ways with those players in the middle of the season. So um, I do think that we'll make some type of a move. It'll be an opportunity type of signing, but I think it'll probably be something temporary, some type of a loan situation where we just get a player, just get a body in here to help us throughout the rest of the season, but don't fall in love with loan players, as they say. I don't think that person will be sticking around long term.
Jay.
I'm gonna say buy on this. In fact, this is one of my favorite interrelated games. The enjoyment of the merry-go-round of absolute retards who are linked with us as a cheap option every January. I remember the fond days of Giuseppe Scoldi. Who else were we linked to in January? I know, obviously, at this point, it's uncool to say Tommaso Rocchi because it's just so, it's too easy. Ezekiel Skeletor, whatever, like Martin Montoya, all these bit part players who are brought in, exactly as Sterling said, just to be a body. They're always really enjoyable names and personalities. I mean, Trent Sainsbury from Australia, Trenty from Punch Bowl, for my fellow Australians. If you get the reference, if you know, you know. But otherwise, these are always pretty hilarious transfers by and large. So, I look forward to being entertained by the ingenuity of Giuseppe Marotta once again. So I'm gonna say bye.
What about the ill-fated? Was it a Spinazzola for Politano swap?
Yeah. I mean, that one could have actually done well for us, considering Spinazzola has had a pretty good second half of his career, right? I mean, he was one of Italy's most important players, arguably even one of the MVP or the MVP of the Euro. Was it 2020 or so long ago? Euro 2022 that they won, and then since then he had a solid spell at Roma, and now he's a key player at Napoli. So I'm sure he could have been a useful player for us. There's, I mean, the most recent one kind of lives in memory and stings a lot, which is Zalewski. And we've been here before, but it just doesn't make sense to have sold him the way we did. But let's not get started there again. Look, I'm genuinely looking forward to seeing what kind of names we're linked with. If they're good, then great. If they're shit, at least they're entertaining, right?
Inter summarized. I'll go ahead and buy this one as well. I just want to stress that if we sell Frattesi, we do not need to bring in another midfielder, or at least we don't need to bring in another Mazzala, where we just have too many in the team. We do not need another one. So if you're going to bring in a midfielder, make it someone defensive. Otherwise, you should be looking at a center back. You should be looking at a right wing back. And this Dumfries is apparently going to be out until March with ankle surgery. So there is a need for a player, but don't sign another box-to-box midfielder. Play Diouf. We don't need to go down this path.
I just want to shout out former Interjections member, Irfan. His favorite January signing. What's that guy's first name? Caicedo, the striker who played for Lazio. Felipe Caicedo, of course. I know he was a great point of irritation for Irfan, but I just want to say, I was going to say free my boy young Agume, but then I realized, did you guys see that photo that leaked today of like Brozovic meeting with Conte?
I did see that, yes.
That would upset me very much if Brozovic joined Napoli as like a free transfer at the end of the season, or even like a January signing or something. I think Brozovic has been one of my favorite players in the last 15 years. So it would be very upsetting to see him join Napoli, and but let's bring him home. Let's bring him and Perisic home.
I don't know who this Irfan guy you're referencing is, but I'll just leave that alone. So next up, buy or sell, Joseph Martinez starts more than 10 matches the rest of the season. Mikko.
More than 10 matches. I'm going to sell. I would love to see it, but I gotta sell it. I don't believe it's going to happen. But
fucking no chance.
Only way it will happen is Sommer will absolutely he will be so bad that there's no other option. I don't want to see that, but
you've already seen it.
Yeah. Well, he hasn't been. I don't think he hasn't been that bad that you absolutely need to kind of bench it and not play him at all anymore. I don't believe that, but I kind of agree that I would still want to see him more, at least play like split the games or something, but I don't see it happening. I'm going to sell this. Sommer is not going to be that bad.
Sterling?
Yeah, I sell this one as well. I don't think there needs to be much more explanation. I think that ultimately it comes down to Kivu and his willingness to really make waves and bench the Senators and the team, and I have not seen any evidence yet that he's willing to do that, so I'll sell it.
All right, Jay's on record as a sell, and I am as well, for what it's worth, even though this is a mistake in my opinion. All right, two more. Buy or sell, Juve fails to qualify for the Champions League. Mikko.
Yeah, they won.
Was that Juve fails to qualify or Juve qualifies?
Juve fails to qualify.
All right.
I'm going to sell this one. The Juve-Roma match was a big one for both. And unfortunately, Juve won that. I think Spalletti has got some results for them, and they are going to be better from now on. I don't know, the Champions League, they will probably go out in the Champions League fairly soon. They haven't been convincing there at all. So I think they kind of focus more on the kind of the Scudetto race, so to speak. And I think they will be there in the top 4. I'm going to sell this.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to sell this one. They actually look pretty decent, and I think they've won 5 out of their last 6 matches, if I'm not mistaken. Their best performance of the year was their last match. They actually had attacking patterns of play and good movement, and they looked threatening throughout the entire 90 minutes. So I think Spalletti's finally starting to have his input on the team and the way that they're playing. So Spalletti is a proven manager. He will get them to a top four. I don't think that they're going to win the league. I definitely don't think they're going to go too deep in the Champions League, but I think that
They'll
they'll be a
definitely
lock
beat
for a
us,
top.
though.
They'll beat us. I mean, they beat us when they were trash, so they're definitely going to beat us when they're good. But yeah, no, I think they'll be a lock for a top four spot. Honestly, I could see them finishing even third, ahead of maybe like a Milan.
Ahead of like an Inter.
Yeah. Jay took the words out of my mouth. Jay, what do you got for me?
Oh, no question. I mean, if there's one thing you can trust, it's the uselessness of others like Roma, Lazio, etc. When teams when you want them to help you out and beat on your rivals like Juventus or Milan, they'll be happy to just donate points while just being a pain in your own ass. And that's what we're seeing again. I said at the time, the victory that we had over Roma doesn't really mean shit because they were a glorified fifth place team just getting lucky and winning games with like 0.3 xg while conceding no goals. It was unsustainable. It was never going to last. And they're always going to come crashing down to the mean. And that's what you're seeing right now. This Roma side is like a 5th to 6th place at best. I don't think they're better than Atalanta. Obviously, they have Gasparini, but I think in terms of like personnel, I think they're pretty trash, although I do like that Wesley fullback that they have. Anyway, long-winded way of saying that game we won against Roma kind of really fails to what's that saying? Fails to deceive, flatters to deceive. You get my point. Yeah, it was pretty meaningless, and Roma are shit, and you're seeing that now. That means that the top 4 slots will be probably taken by Napoli, Milan, Inter, and Juventus. Not necessarily in that order, but I don't think the other teams are capable of maintaining a position around the top 4. I think there will be a gap from 4th to 5th, and I think that gap will grow as the season goes on. I don't think Bologna will be able to kind of really get much higher than where they are now. And, Como, I don't think we're ever seriously going to be anywhere above like 6th or 7th anyway. So I think the top 4 is set. And unfortunately, as much as we want Juventus to be shit, and as much as, we all love the idea of kicking them while they're down and Juventus having like a real banter season, they still have enough in the tank to get over the line for 4th. So I'm going fail to qualify was buy. No, I'll sell.
I'll be the contrarian and buy this one. Roma are heavily linked to Xerxes right now in the mercato. I think he'd be an excellent fit for what Gasparini is trying to do in attack, and I just don't want to undersell what Gasparini is able to do in the league. This guy has a great track record with Atalanta of getting them into the top 4. He was very consistent with it. I think he can apply that same magic to Roma. Hopefully they can reinforce the squad a little bit for him in January. But yeah, I do think Juve is the weakest of the bigger sides between Inter, Napoli, and Milan, and if Gasparini can work a little magic for me, I think it's possible. Also worth pointing out that Juve have a just brutal fixture list coming up here soon with Inter, Roma, Lazio, Napoli. It gets really tough for Juve here soon after a little bit of a honeymoon period they're on right now with some lighter lifts. So I'll keep the dream alive.
Isn't in the Inter game fall into like the end of the honeymoon period rather than the start of the hard games for Juventus?
That's an excellent point, considering it's an automatic 3 points for Juve.
That there's actually Atalanta, Lazio, Inter, Como, Roma. All those.
Yeah, it's a tough list.
Yeah.
All right, last one before we wrap up. I always end with the same one. Mikko, buy or sell, Inter win the Scudetto.
Yeah. Tough one. It depends on so many things, but I'm going to buy this one. I think we fail in the Champions League. We might go out already in the round of 16. Let's see. At the latest into quarterfinals, unless we are super lucky with the draw. So we're gonna go out there, and then we can put more focus on the Scudetto race, unlike last season when it took so much kind of concentration and energy to fight those matchups against Bayern and Barcelona. So after we get out of the Champions League, I think we can win the whole thing. So I'm going to buy this one.
Like the confidence, Sterling?
Yeah. I'm selling. I think that this team hasn't shown the mental fortitude to take that step forward. I feel like based on everything that we've seen so far this season, and really for the last 18 months or so, we'll probably get somewhat close enough to just really frustrate and anger all the fans, but ultimately we'll find a way to come up just that little bit short. I do think that it'll be Napoli again with Conti. I just that's just the feeling that I have overall. I don't think that Milan has enough. I think that they'll come up short. Same with Juve. Their start to the season was just not good enough, in my opinion. Um, I think that they'll come up short. So I think that that's going to leave Napoli to, you know, uh, get one more Scudetti in this Inter-dominant era where Juan Jesus and Politano have more Scudetti than Barella, Bastoni, and Lautaro.
I don't even need to ask Jay, but I'll let you do the honor.
Yeah, you didn't have to ask me. I don't think there's any way this team wins the Scudetto, despite the fact that we are first. Our record against the shit teams is not going to be perfect either. I think it's like categorically proven at this stage. I mean, how much more evidence do we need that this team just can't get it up against the big opponents? Like, forget the Derby della Madonnina beating Milan, forget beating Napoli. Even fucking Bologna in the Supercoppa semi was a hurdle too high for this team. So with that evidence, we're not going to beat the big teams. We can't beat the big teams. So the only way we can win the Scudetto is just to be spotless, perfect against basically the teams from like sixth downwards. But realistically, that's not going to take place either. We're not going to beat every one of those teams, all 14 of those teams, until the end of the season. We'll drop points here and there and probably slip up a couple of times against like those mid-tier teams as well, from like, 5th to 9th or something. And then ultimately, I think the 6-point games will cost us dearly as well. And not to go full circle and wrap right back around to the beginning of this episode, but I actually really wanted us to win the Supercoppa, not because the trophy is in itself worth much, but I heard arguments about the extra rest from dropping out of the tournament early was beneficial. Personally, I think it would have been more beneficial to win the tournament because the psychological boost from winning the trophy and in doing so beating a Napoli team that you've lost against a handful of times consecutively would have been far more valuable than a couple extra days of rest, at least in my opinion. But in any instance, long-winded way of saying, unfortunately, the empirical evidence is quite damning. We just can't beat these big teams right now. So until that changes, I just don't see where I'm supposed to believe in this team's mental resolve to win something significant like a big game, let alone a title.
All I will say is the law of averages has to work on the end. Eventually, we will win one of these games. It is not possible for us to go 2 full seasons without winning one of these games. There will be a moment where we step up. There has to be. I mean, this is football. You don't go as a side as big as Inter 2 full years without beating a top side. So I actually think our next home game against Napoli will be the prime opportunity for us to finally get this monkey off our back. So I'm going to go ahead and buy this, which I'll probably regret, but that's okay. No one's keeping score too closely at home. I think
And
we're.
this,
Go ahead, Mikko.
yeah, one add that it was mentioned like a bit earlier about this stretch of games, like starting Atalanta and month forward. We're gonna play 9 games there, and we are going to know well about that time after that 9th game that what has happened in the mercato, and at that point we have or should have pretty good picture, or a lot better than now, like what's going to happen in the Scudetto race and what's the Champions League going to look like. So I'm looking forward to this next month, and because that will, to me, that will say a lot about our season. Like in the Champions League, in the Scudetto race, there's the mercato ending or closing at that time, so we know, have we done anything? Are we going to do anything? And what others have done? You mentioned Xerxes to Roma. Napoli might do something, and Milan and Juve as well. They might do something in the mercato, and obviously that will kind of have its effect on us as well. So I really hope we will be kind of active there, but let's see.
All right, Jay's hot betting tip before we get out of here.
I'm gonna go with Napoli winning the Super Cup 3-1 against Bologna. I think Højlund will score 2, and I think Neres will score the 3rd. I think for Bologna, probably, Orsolini is the obvious pick. So we'll say
You Immobile, you coward.
I completely forgotten that Immobile had moved there until he coolly smashed home a top corner penalty to take his side to the final. The exact opposite of what 5 Inter players before him managed to do. So I'll say 3-1 Napoli in the Super Cup final.
All right, put your money on it. Mikko, I'll let you do the honor.
Forza Bologna, Forza Inter.
That's right. Have a good Christmas, everyone. Catch you next time.